training. In this training, I am going to walk you through how to start reasoning through Roth conversions a little bit deeper and giving you some instructions on how you can start to work on your own Roth conversion strategy. Now, like I mentioned before, Roth conversions it's not black and white most of the time, but sometimes it is, but a lot of times it's not. And what I mean by that is you never know the exact amount that you could convert in that perfect amount, because nobody knows what account type rules are going to be in the future. Roth accounts, who knows, 20 years from now or 15 years from now, they might change everything to where they're actually taxed. Probably not, but it might be. You never know. Tax brackets, nobody knows what tax brackets are going to be in the future. Nobody knows exactly what your income is going to be in the future based off of your account values. So what I mean by that is your RMDs are influenced by the size of your portfolio. And if we're experiencing much lower returns or market crashes or big recessions or even a depression in a few years or 10 years or whatever it might be, that might happen. And that could cause your RMDs to be so much lower potentially than they're projected to be, and which you could argue wasn't optimal to convert, right? So my point is, nobody knows exactly what's going to happen tomorrow and then heading into the future. But what we can do is to use some forecasting tools and calculators with assumptions to point us in the right direction and at least tell us that Roth conversions might benefit you long term, and here's the value of the benefit potentially, and here's how much taxes you could save potentially. Okay. So in NewRetirement, so I hope that's clear. And everyone's situation is just so unique and different. So play around, just take your time during this exercise because I don't want you to move too quickly. So if you go to the menu within NewRetirement and you go to the Explorers dropdown, click on Roth conversions. And then in the Roth conversion area, what you can do is you can actually run the tool to then tell you, based off of what I have inputted into the system, based off of my age, based off of my account size, my portfolio type, where assets are held, based on my forecasted tax bracket, based off of how long I think my retirement's going to last, based on how much I'm spending, based on all of the inputs that you have plugged into NewRetirement. It's telling you that if you want to just start filling up, so what NewRetirement does is it fills up the lowest tax brackets first, and then continues to fill up tax brackets as long as the conversion will lead to a higher estate value projection. So higher estate value isn't everyone's goal, which is why you should not just take this and implement it and use this just as what you're going to do for Roth conversions, okay? This is a starting point. And what I like to tell my coaching clients is if you run this and you have everything plugged into the system properly and it's not showing any conversions, odds are you're just not a candidate for conversions, okay? It's not the end-all be-all, but odds are there isn't much value to you if this isn't telling you that you're going to have a substantial amount more in your estate. And substantial amount could mean different things for different people. I'll leave that up to you. And in projected taxes, if that doesn't seem substantial for you, then Roth conversions might not be beneficial for you, okay? And so, but if you do run this and everything is inputted properly and it gives you, let's just say, $250,000 more in your estate. This one's pretty extreme. This isn't, a proper situation that I have put in here. I've changed this so many times with coaching clients and video tutorials that this situation is just so random. But let's just say this this amount says $250,000 more in your estate and $50,000 in potential taxes or something close to that. I would say that's pretty substantial. Some people might say yes, some people might say no. But if you do see something when you run the calculation within the Roth Conversion Explorer and you see this higher, call it 6 figures plus is pretty substantial in most situations. In this one, you could say multiple 5 figures plus is pretty substantial in most situations. It might be worthwhile to start testing how much you should convert, over time. Okay. Now, there's a lot of people out there who take the stance of one extreme or the other. Most people that you probably run across either on like Facebook ads or blogs, YouTube videos are probably closer to the extremist of converting the most amount possible, regardless of how much taxes you'll pay and whatever tax bracket you'll end up in. Okay, so there are people taking that stance. Mostly people who you see on online or teaching workshops and are taking that stance. Okay, but that isn't necessarily optimal for not just like it could be optimal from a how much more you could have in your estate. It could be potentially, but not necessarily for like living your retirement in cash flow, because for every conversion that you make, you have to pay taxes. And for that conversion to work, you need to pay taxes out of income or out of taxable investment account or checking savings accounts that's liquid, right? Roth conversions, just as I mentioned in the previous videos, it's not optimal if you are paying for the conversion out of the conversion itself. So if you're converting 100 grand, paying taxes, call it 20 grand, and then putting 20 or 80,000 back into the Roth, that's not optimal. Okay, because now you have catch up. You have $20,000 of value to get back to even break even, and then you have to hold that account and the value long enough to even get back to where you could have been if you just would have left the money in the pre-tax account and let that larger amount, the 100, compound to 150. Okay, as opposed to converting, paying taxes, and only getting up to 130 post-conversion in the Roth. So it's not always, it's rarely, in my opinion, and this is not tax advice or investment advice or financial advice, but in my opinion, as a fiduciary advisor, I've never in my other business given one of my clients the advice of converting everything all in 1 year. Never. And I probably will never, unless tax rates go to 20% no cap, right? That would be pretty awesome to convert $500,000, $1 million at a 20% tax rate. So that might change my mind. But in general, like most situations, that just doesn't make sense. So what does typically make sense, and what I do typically encourage in my advisory business, is chunks over, call it 5 to 7 years, planning Roth conversions over a 3 to 7 year time frame does make sense, in smaller chunks that are reasonable and allow you to pay the taxes for the conversion out of pocket through either your income, excess income, or your investment accounts that are non-retirement accounts, okay? Where you could sell, let's say, one of your positions in that non-retirement account at a with no taxes owed to trigger that sale. And we don't need to get into that, but ideally, here's the ideal situation. You have enough income and you have enough cash to pay for the taxes of the conversion. That's like the most optimal. And then the next layer is you have an individual account or a trust account or a joint account that is not retirement specific, where you could find a position within that account that doesn't have a capital gain associated with it. Ideally, you'd find a position that has a loss associated with it to trigger the loss and to capture that loss and use that as a write-off on your tax return. That's the most ideal situation. However, that's kind of the flow, right? You would want to pay out of income, and then out of savings and in your cash accounts, and then out of your taxable investment accounts. The least optimal is you pay for the taxes on the conversion out of the actual conversion itself. So if you want to convert 100, the least optimal would be to take 20 out of that 100 and then put 80 into the Roth. And then the least optimal, like the worst case scenario, is that you then tap into that value that you converted a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, because then there was no benefit at all. You just pay taxes to pay taxes. And so what you can do with this after you determine, on my base facts, my baseline plan, I do see benefit here. I do see benefit here. Then what you can do is you can go and look down a little bit lower on the Roth Conversion Explorer and kind of see the value of if you were to follow that specific conversion schedule, kind of your effective federal tax rate comparison over time, and then the annual tax liability comparison below that. So you can see here that the current plan, as you can see here, the effective tax rate would be higher initially if you were to do the conversion, but long term it would put you in a lower effective federal tax rate longer term. And then if you were to look at it from a tax owed perspective, like for instance, if you were to follow this exact conversion schedule, you could potentially be paying in the year 2053 $34,000 in federal taxes versus $8,000 in federal taxes, because so much has been converted from your pre-tax or your traditional accounts that you're not even paying much in federal taxes at that point. So you can see here, if you do follow this schedule, and again, we don't have many students who follow this exactly, mostly because they just can't afford the tax bill to convert. Some can, but most can't. And so you can see that over the first few years, or the first 10 to 12 years, it is pretty stressful. It's a little bit higher in taxes, right? But then once you start getting to 72, when RMDs start kicking in, that's when you can see the benefit of paying much less in taxes over time when RMDs start to kick in. So the name of the game, and I mentioned this before, is to pay the least amount of taxes, but you only want to trigger an additional tax if you feel like you're going to be in a lower tax bracket if you do trigger it today. And then use this platform, use NewRetirement to see not only the taxes that you could potentially save, but the additional value that you could gain from doing the conversion. Okay? A lot to take in here. The more time you spend in this, the more it's just going to make sense. So I just would encourage you to spend a good amount of time on this page and read it, right? Read everything that you see here. Another thing to look at is once you look at this, the next step, I should say, would be for you to start testing out conversion amounts that seem reasonable for you. Okay, so for instance, if you see here, it's telling you in this situation, like if this was your situation, it's telling you that you should consider converting $14,000 from your Fidelity IRA. On the right-hand side there, if you look on the right-hand side, you'll see $14,000 in the year 2022. Okay, that's all well and good, but what I want to do is I want to see if I were to implement that change, how much value could that add lifetime and then how much additional taxes would that trigger, right? And so to do that, what you would do is you would go up to My Plan. You would go to Accounts and Assets. Actually, before we do that, I want to make a duplicate of the baseline so I don't monkey around and change something. So baseline, and then I'm just going to say with Roth conversion. Test scenario. Okay, so if we go back to the overview tab, this is just the baseline plan. What we're going to want to do is go to the money flow. And once you go to money flow, this is where you can see Roth conversions. And then what you do is you can model a Roth conversion and let's see here, click on the account that you want to convert. Conversion amount, let's just say it's that $14,000. Conversion age, let's just say it's January 2022. It said 2022, we should do that. And then make sure when you plug in the optimistic rate and pessimistic rate that it's the same as the account that you're the same as the account that you're taking it from. Okay, so if your IRA, let me just make a duplicate of this tab and see what it is. So 7.55 and 5.35. So 7.55, 5.35 is the rate of return that we used in the Fidelity IRA. So we want to use that same rate for the conversion. So once you click the source of where you're converting it from, what amount it is, when it's going to happen, then what you can do is click save after you put the proper rate of return in that you used. That was the same as the account that you took it from. So if the Fidelity IRA, if your IRA was plugged in at 7.55% and 5.35% for optimistic and pessimistic, or the median and the 10th percentile, that's what you want to plug in here. Click save. Okay. So once you see the plan update, here, you can see that by converting that amount, you could have $98,000 more in your estate by converting. So under the plan updated, this is where you can see the immediate benefit for converting that amount. Okay. So if you want to see how that one-time conversion could benefit you long term, if all of this pans out to be true, if tax brackets stay the same, if your portfolio grows as it's forecasted to, if your expenses stay the same, like if all of this stays true, which it won't, but if it stays true or even close, you could see that this is kind of the benefit long term and of portfolio value, and here is the potential less in lifetime taxes. Okay, and that's what you do. So what you're going to do is you can go to the wealth tracker, which I am going to pop up. Just bear with me a minute. Okay. All right, so make sure you pull up your wealth tracker. Just give me a second. I have too many screens opened. Okay. Sorry, bear with me. Okay, so let me drag this over. I'm trying to make this so it makes sense for just what I'm sharing with you today. I'm just trying to clear out the wealth tracker, and I want to change this to 57, which is how old I am in this hypothetical situation. Okay, and so 57, so 58. It's important that when you test this out, that you record this right away. Okay, so I was just cleaning this up. I just have so many training videos that sometimes this just gets a little bit messy. And so what we want to do is we want to record in the wealth tracker, because this is where you're just bringing all of your data together. This is where you want to record the conversion amount and then the total value increase and the total tax savings. Okay, so the proposed amount, if you just plug in here, let's say this was $14,000. What you're going to do is you're going to use the values here. So 98,159 for value increase, 98,159, and then lifetime taxes. You're just going to plug in here that 6861, 6861, and then as you input the conversion amounts and any additional ones that you add, you'll just do that same thing. So if you know, in year 2022, let me just drag that. Oh, 23. Okay, enough fidgeting with all this stuff. What you'll do is as you add the amount that you're thinking about, or the proposed amount, and then add the lifetime tax savings, add the lifetime or estate value increase, this will update. And so what you're going to want to do is, if your wealth tracker does not have this, you have an older version, just make sure you just make a copy of this one here. And then you can just re-input some of your numbers and copy those over from your previous wealth tracker sheet. Okay, so I'm always updating this, so just make sure you check in every now and again to make sure you have the most recent wealth tracker, because odds are it just might look a little bit different. So what you'll do is you'll start adding up. So what we did there was we took the $14,000 and converted it in the year 2022 and added $98,000 more into our estate, and we're going to pay $6,800 less in lifetime taxes. Pretty cool. Okay. Then what we're going to do is just go back to the baseline plan. We're going to go back to the Explorer, the Roth Conversion Explorer. Make sure you go back to the baseline plan. Okay. And then what we're going to do is go to run it, and it is proposed $14,000 next year and $15,000 the year after. Okay, so if you just hover over this, you'll see what it proposed off to the right there for the year 2023. So $15,000. So if we go back to the Roth conversion scenario, and we go to the money flow, and we go to Roth conversions, all you need to do is just add in the account, conversion amount, conversion age. We're going to do this, just January. Every fresh year is totally fine. 7.55, it's the same fire drill. 5.35 as I just showed you before. Save. Okay, so as you can see here, we could potentially have $97,000 more in our estate by age 90 and $67.25 less in lifetime taxes. Pretty cool. So 97,793, so 15, 97,753, and lifetime tax savings was 67,725. So that's the number I'm grabbing right here where you see plan updated. Don't dismiss this right away because you want to make sure that you grab these. Otherwise, what you're going to have to do is just delete that fact that you just plugged in here and then re-input it to trigger the value gain, because you want to make sure that you get the full value gain of that tweak or that change that you just implemented. So 6725, so 6725. And then you'll see the tax savings add up as you add more line items and the value increase as you add more conversions. And this is what you'll do, okay? And and so after doing this, you'll see the value here, and then what you can do is you can say, you know what, the $14,000, how much actually does that add to my tax bill in the year 2022? Okay, so before converting the the $14,000 in the year 2022, what was my total taxes? And then after conversion, or if I were to convert, how much additional taxes would I owe? On 14 grand, it's not going to be a fortune. Like it's it's not going to be very substantial. But how to test that is what you want to do is you want to go to the baseline scenario. So bounce back to the baseline scenario and go to the insights drop down. Let me just collapse this. Insights drop down and go to taxes. And if you go to, so this is the taxes under insights. So insights, taxes, and then there's federal, and then there's state. Okay, so federal and state allows you to kind of toggle between that down here. So what you're going to want to look at is this specific bar here and the numbers off to the right. Okay, so your total taxes in the year 2022, $18,945. So let me just add a column. I think that would be beneficial. Taxes before, and then I'm going to do taxes after. So essentially taxes before conversion and taxes after. So what we're going to do is just say this is 18,945. Make sure you're on your baseline plan, okay, because that's what we're comparing it to. 18,945. So 18,945. Taxes before, and then we're going to go to taxes after. Okay, well, you might as well grab the next year too while we're here. So 19,528. 19,528. Work smarter, not harder. And then so what you want to do next is you want to go back to the actual conversion scenario, right? And then say how much and record how much taxes you're going to owe after. Okay, and then the difference is the difference. So then we'll go to baseline plan, go to Roth conversion, and then hover over the year 2022, and it's 21,234. So 21,234, and if If you go to the next the next year, it's 21,982. Okay, and then so the difference, we can even make another column. Okay, and that is that is how you will reason through to start using the Roth Conversion Explorer calculator to give you an idea if Roth conversions could make sense for you, taking the proposed amount, plugging it into a new scenario that is a duplicate of your baseline plan, and then adding this as a conversion from your pre-tax account, modeling the conversion itself, right? So $14,000, $15,000, and you would continue to do this for as many conversion events that you want to model. Then what you do is you take the lifetime tax savings from that event, estimated value increase from that event, taxes before, taxes after, so you can come up with the idea, okay, yep, if I convert $14,000 in the year 2022, I'll owe $2,200 more in taxes that I have to kind of plan for in the new year. Can I afford that? Okay, can I afford that through my income? Can I afford that through my cash accounts, checking, savings, money market, and then taxable investment accounts if in fact you have the liquidity to do that. And so this is how you work through it. It's I know it seems a little bit maybe difficult to start, but trust me, once you kind of learn the flow of this and where to go and how to reason through, this is going to make a whole lot of sense as you do this more and as you just practice. Okay, and so take your time. Make sure that you follow my steps, step by step. Use this. I would encourage you to re-download the Wealth Tracker because I just added a couple columns here that will help you with determining what you are actually going to then commit to and execute on as far as conversions. Okay, and then if you do in fact decide to convert a specific amount, what you can do is you can, like at the end of the year, you can then put the actual amount of the conversion here, just so you know how much you actually converted, okay, compared to what you were thinking about converting. And then you can even reconfigure this to then show the actual value increase using that specific amount if you do in fact plug that into your scenario, right? So if you actually convert a specific amount and you plug that into the software program, then you can actually get the potential actual value increase as opposed to the proposed amount value increase. But I don't want to overcomplicate or go too deep on that. All I want you to do is to go to the Roth Conversion Explorer for your baseline plan. So Roth Conversion Explorer, run it. Is there value here of significance? Is there value here of significance? What's the conversion amounts that it's proposing? If it looks like something that is significant, make a duplicate of your baseline plan and go to the My Plan dropdown, Money Flow. Once you created that new scenario, go to the Roth conversion area, drop that down, and then model the conversions, the year, the age, rate of return, make sure you get that right, and do that for as many conversion events that you want to model. And then make sure you record the difference in individual events that you add. So every time you add a conversion event, before adding another one, record the updated numbers to give you how much value that specific conversion event added to your situation, both from a tax savings and estate value gain. Okay? Because otherwise it's just going to give you a total value added from the baseline plan here, which is fine. This sheet is going to add that for you if you're using kind of the same numbers. But just make sure that as you add, okay, yep, I'm going to convert 14. It's going to add $6,000-ish in savings and $100,000 in additional estate value. Great, record it here, and then move forward with the other conversion events. Okay. So at the end of the day, this is really what you're going to be basing your decisions on. Initially, is, can I afford to pay the taxes? Okay, great. Like, I could have 100 grand if I convert 14. I could have 100 grand more by converting, which is pretty significant. I mean, think about it. It's essentially like, I mean, look at that rate. Look at the return on investment. 14 to have 98 more. That makes a lot of sense. But you have to make sure that you can afford the taxes, because it could be hugely beneficial for some people. Other people, it could be not as drastic, right? So for some people who meet certain criterias and income brackets and asset values, it might be insane. The longer your retirement, the greater the benefit. But for other people, it might not be as drastic. Okay. But if you cannot afford the tax bill, most of the time it's just not optimal to do the conversion, potentially, but not that's not the end all be all. It's just the least. It could make sense to pay for the conversion out of the conversion itself if, in fact, your time horizon before you would tap into that Roth value is like pretty significant in time, like 20 years. Okay. It could actually make sense then. But if you're tapping into this account, or maybe even like 30 years, but if you're tapping into this account, like, within 10 years, it's most of the time not going to make sense to do the conversion. It's just probably going to make more sense to not do the conversion. But it's based off of how much what your living expenses are. It's based off of income. It's based off of your financial goals. But this right here, guys, will really help you do the legwork around, okay, what's the benefit of me converting? How much more value could I have? How much taxes could I save? In how much could I save in taxes? And how much additional taxes would I owe out of pocket to actually get the most optimal benefit from the conversion? Okay. So go through, do this homework, take your time, rewatch this if you need to, follow step by step, re-download the wealth tracker sheet, and just take your time. You can do this on your baseline plan. You can test it against your baseline plan. Once you start to dial in a modified baseline plan, you can then run this again if you're changing your investment portfolio, if you're changing your retirement date, if you're changing your Social Security retirement benefits. You're going to want to run this again because it'll give you different numbers. It'll give you different estate value increase, lifetime savings increase, and proposed amounts will be different. Okay, so that's it for this training. It was a longer one, but it was a good one, and I will see you in the next training video.